Fresno, California today.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, sometimes I hold my breath, yeah. I don't got no time to spare. I could go my way, go yours. You see real life, I see toys. I don't got no time to spare.
All right. What's up, everybody? My name is Steph the Pharaoh. Today I have a special guest. He goes by the name of Stephen Pacho. However, he's also known on social media as Stevenfinity. And, I've known him for about a year now, a little over a year.
Yeah.
And, it's kind of interesting. We've definitely kept in touch. I've kept in touch with what he's doing. And we met about a year ago. Like I said, we were at a product launch for Miss Lacey Marie's eyewear. I don't know if you remember that, but it was at Lux.
Dude, yeah,
And
I was just hanging out with Lacey like a few nights ago.
oh,
Yeah.
really? That's cool, man.
Yeah.
That's cool. I was there, my girlfriend, she was a model at that, like in that launch.
Yeah.
And so I was just like tagging along, and I'm glad that I was able to go. I was kind of hesitant on going just because I didn't know where I'd fit, but then I ended up meeting you and, we've stayed in touch.
Yeah, dude.
And,
Likewise.
the reason I wanted to have you on the show is because I see what you're doing. And I feel like you and I, based on our conversation and over the last year, we're in alignment with each other, man. We also have a very similar name too. Like if you look at it, if you just glanced, it would be almost similar.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
Now you're doing a couple of things. You're a photographer, you have a social media business. Now I don't really know how you got your start fully, but we'll dive into that. But right now, what I want to do, tell us a little bit about yourself, man, for the people that don't know you and for the people that do. Who is Stephen Pacho?
Yeah, so pretty much born and raised in Madera, came over here to Fresno State. I grew up playing, sports. So baseball, basketball. Basketball is my favorite, man. That's what I love.
Okay.
Pretty much love coffee as well. Used to be a huge gamer.
Wow.
Oh
Okay.
yeah, I started gaming in like around like 12. Well, I started gaming at a young age, but when I actually got Xbox Live and was like heavily competing and like addicted to that thing, dude, I want to say that started at the age of like 13 and lasted for like about a good 10 years of me going hard. We're talking like 7 to 8 hours a day, dude. Like
Wow.
straight competing, super competitive on that. And then I gave that up, and that's when photography took over because I was like, dude, because like I have all this free time now, so I got to pick up a new, hobby, a new passion, and so that's pretty much it.
How old were you when you picked up photography?
Yeah, about like 23, I would say.
About 23 years old. Are
Yeah.
you now this is probably kind of a personal question, but do you have siblings? You an only child? Like, how'd you grow
No,
up?
no, I have one older brother. Yeah, he's about
Okay.
2.5 years older. So yeah,
Okay.
so
Now you grew up in Madera. I used to work in Madera back in
oh
the
shoot,
day,
okay,
and so I kind of know it's very similar town to how I grew up. Kind of small town vibes. I feel like it's growing though.
yeah.
Recently I feel like
Over the years, yeah, it's definitely grown.
yeah. Now you went to high school in Madera.
Yeah, so I went to Madera High, and then right after that, went straight to Fresno State. And that's another background story about me, man. I took a very long time at State, but I'm a huge believer in like that everybody has their own like timeline. You know what I mean? So there's people like me who might have taken a little bit longer, but might have found their passion and their interest and their major within a certain time frame later on in my in the college timeline, where there's those other people who graduate like super early, man. They're in and out within 4 or 3.5 years or whatever, but then they're like, 5 years after college and they still haven't figured out what they want to do. You know what I mean? So I'm a huge
Exactly.
believer in that age isn't really matter that much. It's more, everyone has their own timeline. So yeah.
Yeah, it's based on the individual, really. With what they want to do, and overall, like how much thought they're putting into what they're doing. Because I'll tell you, man, I grew up in a family where college was kind of pushed on us. I don't know how it was for you. When did you know that you wanted to go to school?
Dude, since I was like a kid, man, like yeah, early elementary school, I kind of knew I was like destined for it. My parents never like made it seem like you have to go. It was just more like that was the next step, and they just had those aspirations for me. And when it came that time when I was 18, when it was that time in my life to make up my own mind, uh, I just wanted to keep following that path. So yeah.
Okay, okay. So, well, that's kind of cool that they didn't really push it on you, because I know a lot of people where they feel the pressure of, man, I got to go to school. I don't want to, but I have to. Now, you went to Fresno State. What was your major? What did you major in?
So I got really lucky. It was business right from the get go, but I did not know what the hell I wanted to do for the first 4 years, man. I was just taking all these general ed classes, science, math, all this bullshit that I don't believe that they should, really, you should figure that stuff out by high school. And then hopefully by the time you get to college, you should really feel like have a narrow field of study. So
Okay.
I wish I would have had more business classes like to start with, but that didn't come about until like after year three, I want to say, or year three, I want to say. And so, the reason I say I got lucky is because later on, a few years later, after taking a few marketing classes, that's when I was like, dude, this is what I love to do. And it shows a lot of my behavior as a kid of like, I was always like, say the team captain of a team. I like to pick the team colors. I like to pick the team name. I like to, get people together. I like to create like a website. And it's like,
Oh,
it all
wow.
makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you were very involved, it sounds like, in a group setting.
Yeah. I was always like the guy who like wanted to make things look nice. Look, everybody like, let's have a uniform. Let's all be, presentable, or let's all look, badass as a team, man. Let's have these colors. And yeah, I was usually the one to come up with that type of stuff.
Wow, I would have loved to have you on my team in any group project, I'll tell you that. Back
Dude,
then, man,
yeah, same, that you mentioned that I was usually the one to take over like the PowerPoints, like
yeah.
every single time. I just almost didn't trust anyone else to do the PowerPoints. Like 90% of like students would just like put the basic black and white, like no background, like no design into it, man. Like every time I would come out and with my team, once we finished the project and then we put it out in class, everyone would be wowed by like our presentation, just because like, yeah, it was a little bit nice. You could tell you took more time to design and stuff.
You took that time and you put that effort in, really, is what you did,
Yeah.
man. Now, so in high school, did you, how can I put this? Did you really think business was like the route for you to go
Not at
down?
all,
Or
dude. That's crazy that you asked that. I never have thought of that at that age, that like, from 15 to 18 or whatever. I never thought of that. And no, I was just addicted to gaming, man. Dude,
so you
yeah.
really didn't you didn't see a future. You were just like, hey, I'm gonna go with this and kind of see
Yeah,
what happens.
pretty much. I mean, I've always had aspirations to be successful. I've always been like, whatever I'm going to do, I'm going to like try to be the best at, or just keep leveling up every day. So I kind of knew that. I was never like, lazy. I was never passive about anything. I was always like hungry. So I always had that characteristic early on. But yeah, like you said, man, not till later on, I had to figure out what I wanted to do.
I feel like you're very charismatic and you have a lot of energy. I mean, have you always been like that? In high school, did people know you?
I had two sides, dude. I had like a serious side, and then I had like a goofy side. So I was like, I could be like this like serious, like cool guy persona. And then like in class, I'd be like a class clown sometimes. So it was like this weird mix, but yeah.
Okay.
I'm all laughing because I'm having some like memories going through my head of like all like the pranks I used to do and stuff.
Dang, I mean, that's what it's about, man. I love getting people's gears turning to where they realize, like, dang, I lived that life, or I did this and I did that. Those stories are kind of cool. Now, so making that transition from high school to college, I mean, at what point did you realize, like, man, this is what I want to do, or I'm struggling? Like, because I know it took you said a little bit longer than the next person, and not that
Yeah.
there's a comparison, but you went through, your own trials and tribulations at that time. I mean, what was it for you where you realized, like, man, like, what do I want to do with this degree? Like,
Yeah.
you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, so I would say I consider myself a late bloomer. What I mean by that is I don't think I started working till like 20-ish, 21. So I was more focused on school at that time. Obviously, I had a lot of exams and like studying and all that good stuff. And then, of course, my other time went towards my girlfriend at the time. I think we spoke
Okay.
about that one
Yeah,
night.
yeah. I remember you were telling me about your story and
Super committed, man. She's a great woman till this day, and we still, we'll talk like once in a while. But yeah, so I was like really, but I don't mean in a bad way, but I was consumed in that relationship. meaning like movie nights all the time, just hanging out, eating all the time. And then of course all the rest of my time went to gaming because like that's all I wanted to do. And I mean, nowadays there's huge careers in like esports, you know, and full-time streamers and full-time gamers. And that would have been awesome if that culture and those professions were like available back then. But so, and then going back to your question was, remind me one more time.
Just like, going through the trials and tribulations that you did, at what point were you unsatisfied with where you were at personally? Not that you were comparing yourself
Dude,
to anybody, but like
yes,
at what point was it like, damn, like I don't want to
bro.
be doing this anymore?
I still remember it, man. Clearly, it was like I want to say I was either 22 or 23, and I just remember I was failing in every part of my life, dude. School, like I mean, I've always been like a good student too, but that semester, like I was sucking. I was having like issues with my relationship because that was like the end of the relationship. That was like the last year. The relationship was struggling with my ex, and then financially, man, that's when I really like, I woke up and I'm just like, I haven't even like really got my own car yet. I was still using like something from my parents. I really hadn't even dove into credit yet, like learning anything about that. Hadn't really moved out yet. And so by then I was just like, cause I was like, like you get comfortable in a routine that you
Yeah.
just got to snap out of it. So yeah, that was that eye opening moment where I was just like, man, I just want so much more for myself. I gave up gaming. I don't want to say I gave up the relationship, but I parted ways from the relationship. So that's two of my biggest bulks of my life that I just kind of like had to kind of exit the
Step away
door,
from. Yeah.
step away from, and start a new chapter. I just started working more. I started picking up more part-time jobs. At one point, I was working like 3 different jobs, man. So it was crazy. Yeah,
Wow. Where were you at?
dude. At that time, I was doing like Dollar General, Tilly's. I worked a little gig at Costco doing some sales for like
Okay.
Tempur-Pedic mattresses. I worked a couple different sales gigs at Costco. C4,
See,
C4
oh,
the
okay. Yeah.
energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dude,
You sold those?
I was slanging C4, bro. I was getting free C4 like on the job. I was just like chugging.
Hey, that's why you had 3 jobs, man.
Yeah, dude,
When you were on
exactly.
C4, you're like, dang, what am I doing?
Yeah,
Hey,
dude.
I don't know if you knew, I actually worked at Tilly's too. Which one did you work at?
The one off of like 199.
Okay, by
Yeah.
that new development in Fresno, like off the west side. Okay.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I was right there. Shoot. I got my start. I think it was like 2012, 2013. I was working at Tilly's. But that's crazy, man. No wonder we get along so well.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, man. I was like at Walgreens, dude. I was doing all kinds of stuff, man. Walgreens, like Kohl's, Target, Starbucks, the bank job. I mean, the list actually goes on too. And
Yeah,
so,
yeah. So like, okay, you were working all these jobs, and that filled that kind of void that you felt like, hey, I'm not doing anything. So
yeah,
you started to progress, and obviously at one point I think you fell into the place of, dang, this isn't filling me up either. It's not filling up any
mhm.
one of my cups. At what point did you leave?
Um, I don't know if there was a clear point for that. I've kind of still been on and off, like even in recent years, even like last year, the year before, I was still kind of working those jobs, and they kind of been always like on the side, working on my craft, working on photography, working on
Okay.
my social media portfolio and stuff like that. Definitely went to like job interviews for like marketing jobs and stuff around town, but my whole take on that is like it's very limited, highly competitive here around. It's not like LA. There's like tons of not social, tons of marketing and advertising agencies here around town. So I definitely dabbed into some of those, sent over my resume, all that good stuff. But that was probably one of my biggest weaknesses was I didn't really gain real world experience early on or like
Mhm.
internships. And so, anyone who's in school, like right now, that's my advice to you is definitely, real world experience and internships are far more important than what you learn out of a textbook. It just is. And so that's what I've been doing, going hard for like the last 4 years of just getting that real world experience. And so that's what's going on. Yeah.
That makes sense, man, because a lot of places they're like, no, we're not going to hire you because you don't have experience, and you're like, dang, that's why I'm here. you're trying to
Yeah,
get the
dude.
experience.
Yeah, and I don't think a lot of young college students realize that either. That they're just in these classes, these lectures. They got these crazy exams going on. They're stressed out of their mind. But if they just keep doing that, man, and sometimes a piece of paper really doesn't, do much.
I know
So
exactly what you're talking about, man.
yeah,
I know exactly what you're talking about. Now, let's talk a little bit about the businesses that you're in now. You do social media marketing for local businesses, and
yeah,
you're also, like I said, a photographer.
mhm,
Back a year ago when I met you, you were just doing, I think, part-time photography, and I remember, like I said, you were telling me a little bit of what you told the audience today of how you were kind of struggling. You're like, man, I found this new inspiration, but it's nice to see that over the year
yeah,
you put a lot of action into growing, your
mhm,
businesses. And I'm like, man, this guy's on fire.
yeah.
So what sparked social media management? How did you come across that business and strategy to where you're like, hey, I want to start this for myself?
Yeah, I feel like I've always wanted to do something like marketing wise like that for like the last 2 years or so, 2 or 3 years. And then seeing the growth of social media and its impact on the audiences around the world and for brands and what it could really do, and seeing that transition of that take over opposed to traditional marketing, like newspaper and like radio and even like billboards, where we're not seeing those are high cost items too, and they're not as effective, where every freaking minute of the day our eyes are glued to this. So that's when I
That's
wanted to
true.
learn the ins and outs of where people are getting their, getting their media for the day and stuff. So yeah, I would say about 2 to 3 years ago, and then finally kind of took action over the last year. So yeah.
Okay. Now, specifically, what do you help small businesses do for those that may be interested that
Yeah.
are
So I
are
pretty
like,
much
hey,
Yeah, so that's where the crossover of photography kind of comes in. So obviously getting a lot of experience with product photography, whether it's food, whether it's a candid shot of you in action, like a hairstylist working on some hair, or somebody at the restaurant making some food. Got a lot of experience with that, and then just a lot of one-on-one with models, and so even like a clothing brand. So if you put me into a photo shoot with for a business here locally, I instantly know how to connect with the model, know how to break them out of the shell, know how to like what kind of poses they should do, what kind of backgrounds, and so photography is probably a huge part in that, creating visually appealing pictures for your business, man. Because I always say, man, if you Google, like, if you're from out of town and you Google like places to eat in Fresno, and you have spot A and spot B, and spot A, say it's like sushi or something, right? So like if the sushi over here looks far more better and just more appealing and more it's making your mouth water, you're probably going to go to that spot opposed to the spot that has only 10 pictures and it looks blurry and it's like the angles are till, yeah, you get the idea.
yeah, yeah, wow. I mean, that's a lot of thought that goes into it, but that's a niche that, like I said, that you've kind of perfected over the last year. Now, with that, I mean, you feel free to plug your company.
Yeah. So sorry, that was just like the core part of like how it crossed over and what's one of the biggest things that I do. I also do content creation, and that can be like, hey, like let's run a sale, fall sale, Veterans Day sales going on, or, end of the year sale or client feature, client spotlight. That's all creating content for business owners, because sometimes they don't have time to really think about all this type of stuff, or even a collab, man. I love putting together collabs, giveaways and stuff like that. And so sometimes they're working full time, man, on the operational side, on the management side, that they don't have time to do the whole social media stuff. And so yeah, just graphic design, strategy, knowing what time of the day your audience is on Instagram, and how often you should be posting, what hashtags you should be using, pretty much all that good stuff. So yeah.
So it sounds like you educate a lot of your clients once they get involved with you, right?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Because there's a lot of little hidden features that just a lot of people don't know. I just taught one of my clients something like 2 days ago. I think it was about archiving a post, and they didn't know like you could do that. And so even little things like that, some of the basics. Also teaching a little bit about the algorithm, how to get your posts a little bit more seen and more exposure, and how that all works. And engagement, man, engagement's huge. Teaching them a lot about engagement, and if I'm actually the one managing their account, I'm actually going in, man, I'm like searching up other businesses within that niche, and within that industry, and just kind of like commenting, engaging, and getting more exposure. Because if you just post pictures, whether it's a nice picture or a bad picture, and you're just kind of posting pictures expecting people to come to you, you're not going to see great results. You got to get out there and you got to engage with the community and with other people within your field and friends, family, and you can't just expect people to come to your profile too.
Yeah, so it sounds like you got to embody, your profile really, and
Yeah,
just
because Instagram pretty much rewards that too. They see how active of a user you are. So if you're like one of those ghost followers who, you follow other people and you see their story all the time, but you never comment on their stories, or you don't even post yourself. And so they're not, Instagram's not going to really, I guess, reward you, for that. They see you
well,
as a passive user.
let's talk about that real quick, because I feel like there's a psychological thing that goes into that if you're not really posting too much. And you kind of mentioned that the other day, but I feel like social media for some too, it gives people an illusion that like, hey, they got this perfect life, when you and I both know that there's a lot of those crossroad moments that are really never spoke of, and you actually mentioned it yesterday. We were sending voice notes back and forth, and you're like, people sometimes out of fear or whatever their own disbelief is, they won't post something because they think XYZ. That's been me at sometimes, you know what I'm saying? So I wholeheartedly agree with what you're saying,
Yeah.
um, on that. But I mean, tell me a little bit about your perspective on that, because you said I got, friends, I know, I'm not going to say family, but whatever, but
Yeah,
you were just kind of telling me a little bit about that.
yes, that is definitely a huge issue in today's world with social media. Is they're not posting what they want to post, man. They got a hobby, they got their job, they got um, something that they're working on, a project, and they don't express that. They kind of hold it in. And I mean, by all means, it is kind of, it's up to you. And there are some people who aren't going to be as active, and that's totally fine. There's no pressure to that to be a part of, social media if that's not something you're really into. You could be more of a spectator than an act, of the actor, but I think there is a lot of insecurities going on, meaning like people there. I know like a lot of people who do want to post, yet they don't because they're afraid of the judgment. They're afraid of the judgment, or they're afraid the picture doesn't, look that great, or it's not perfect, and they're kind of holding back on those things. And I think you just got to be transparent, man. You got to be raw and authentic, and just put it out there. Because I mean, I like to show a day in the life with myself all the time, dude. I like to show, if I'm out grabbing some food, and if I'm out grabbing some coffee, if I'm working on some social media stuff. Like I don't like, some people might not post something because like they're like, oh, people don't care about this. Why would my audience even care about this? When really they might, man. Like they really just might. So.
Yeah, people just don't know, it's putting in that effort and just kind of like disregarding what people are going to think. And I'll tell you, for those that are listening, I was very hesitant on starting my own show, even though a lot of people, I've been told over the last 2-3 years, start a podcast, start a show, do something, because I would listen to you and I'm like, I don't know if I want to, because I mean, it requires a certain part of you to be revealed to the world. And it's just like, some people don't
Yeah,
like to show that. And,
that's true. Yeah.
part of why I started this whole Luxic Vue mindset is just because I want to break the barriers between how people perceive themselves and how they feel about themselves ultimately.
Yeah.
Because like we were talking about, bro, everybody has their own unique gifts in the world. Like I can't recreate the person that you are just by reenacting things
Yeah.
that you do. You know what I'm saying? We're two totally different people.
Yeah.
And if you think about the world, there's like what, 7 billion people in the world. There's just
Yeah, man.
there's
There's so
nobody
much.
that's alike. I mean, yeah, people can almost have similar names, or they can have a similar hobby, but you know what I'm saying? There's just so
Yeah,
much uniqueness in that. Now,
for sure.
I know we don't have all the time in the world
Mhm.
uh, today together. However, what are a couple of things, maybe some advice? You gave some advice earlier on people in school, like, hey, get work experience. That's what I
Yeah.
would recommend. That's what I would do
Yeah.
over. For anybody that's trying to follow their passion right now,
Yeah.
that wants to, break outside of the box, what is
Yeah.
like one thing that you would say? I don't want to make it super difficult for you, but what's
Yeah.
one thing you would tell them?
I would have to say consistency and like volume, like as a content creator, or even a business. I think you gotta stay consistent with yourself. Stick on schedule, and produce, and execute, dude. Probably execution. Execution has always been one of my biggest weaknesses because I'm more of a schemer, man. I'm more of a strategist. I'm
Yeah,
more of the
yeah,
guy, like I could think of 1,000 ideas of what the Grizzlies aren't doing, or what Dutch Bros isn't doing, or what Starbucks isn't doing. I have tons of ideas, yet it all comes down to execution, man. Because anybody could be the next, person to think about, like the next Uber or whatever, the next Spotify and the next Instagram or whatever. But if you don't really execute on that, then someone's going to beat you to it, and no one's going to know you because you're just someone in your room that thought about it. So I think execution, consistency, and volume. And what I mean by volume is just putting out more stuff. Don't wait like a whole year just to make one YouTube video, for instance, right? Don't
yeah,
or
yeah.
don't wait a whole freaking month just to make one post. I know I'm over exaggerating a little bit, but just go, and speed. Yeah, for sure. I would say speed in whatever you do.
I definitely don't think you're exaggerating because I've fallen into that category too, and I don't mind, telling people, "Hey, this is what I went through. This is what I did," because, bro, that's my life experience,
Mhm.
and I'm not trying to hide that for anybody. But you're exactly right. Letting the doubt, letting the fear, or judgment of other people kind of hold
Yeah,
you in a place. You get sick and tired of that place after a while, and you're like, "No,
yeah.
just screw it. I'm going to do it." You know what I mean?
That brings me to my next point. Another one I wanted to add on was like failure, kind of just perseverance. Um, you got to go out and taste. You got to go see what you like. You can't just stay like say get into one job right after high school and just kind of stick within that little world. I feel like you got to just expand and just meet as many people as you can. Get as many different experiences as you can, and who cares how many times you fail. I mean, I like the story of like Michael Jordan, who got cut from his was it his college basketball team. I want to say his freshman year, if I'm correct. And then look at he went on to be like the greatest basketball player of all time. And I think there's like a story about Tom Brady as well, who went super late in the draft. And there's all these like famous celebrities who didn't get there. I think The Rock has a very inspiring story as well.
Hmm.
I think I forgot he was like probably close to his mid 20s, and he only had like $7 in his pocket, I believe he said, and he had just got cut from like his Canadian football team and sent back home to the United States, and went to go crash at his dad's place. And so, dude, it's stories like that. And so is perseverance, man. You got to deal with adversity. You can't be afraid to like fail and
Move
just stop
forward.
there. Yeah, you can't just like dwell. You can't dwell on that, man. You got to be ready to bounce back, and um, don't feel like your life's over. That could apply to relationships too.
Yeah.
Like even if you get out of a relationship and you're like heartbroken or something, man, like yeah, take a day or two or whatever, or however much time, but not too much time. But be ready to like don't let that hold you back, and be ready to kind of bounce forward. Even like business deals, man. There's been a few times where me and another business owner, we didn't work out. We parted ways mutually and respectfully. I wasn't never ever got into it with like anybody, like a client, or
Yeah.
never got into like any bad vibes. It was more like, hey, like this system's not working, or maybe their brand culture wasn't resonating for my business, and so I didn't. We might have not seen eye to eye to certain things, and just because maybe even if they were a major player in Fresno, in locally, or whether they're just like a startup and it's their first month, I think you can't hold yourself back on that, and just know that there's a lot more opportunity out in the world. So yeah,
Yeah, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. There's definitely a lot of failures, they go through. What now? Let me ask you really
that's where
quick,
you
since
grow.
we're
That's where you grow.
okay. Now, what has been your biggest? I don't like the word failure. Let's call them shortcomings, where you
Okay.
didn't, where you just it didn't go the way you expected it,
Yeah.
and you had to make a rebound. What would you say is the biggest shortcoming that you've faced in
That's a
your short career, from, I mean, working all these jobs to now, being a business owner?
damn, dude. That's a hard one. I would have to say like leaving a job to try to like pursue the entrepreneurial route full time, and not going as it expected, and so now you're kind of jobless, and now you're just like job hunting like crazy, man. And I remember like breaking down in my car because it was a whole month that I was just like, felt like I was giving it my all, man, applying to like so many freaking jobs just to, get that income coming back again.
Mhm.
And I remember being like super emotional for like those 2 days, for like particular days towards the end of the month, and just kind of when am I ever going to get that opportunity again? And so because obviously I wasn't ready and fully developed to run my businesses yet, so that was probably by far the hardest like shortcoming and adversity that I had to overcome. And so I remember like the next day, dude, I got like 3 phone calls from 3 different jobs, like wanting to hire me, man. And so I think I like took, or no, 4 different jobs, and I took 3 of them.
Oh, wow. Wow.
I worked my schedule so that I can work all 3 of them. And that's what I did for about like just a few months though. And then until I was ready to kind of get back on my shit basically. So yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with, being humble and having that humility and going back to a job,
Fuck
because
yeah, 100%.
I saw a post today and it was like, wow, it was mind blowing. I believe it was on London Real, if I'm not mistaken, or it was
Hmm.
Patrick David on one of his podcast shows. But it was an older gentleman, and he's like, going back or having a job while you're an entrepreneur, that's a noble thing to do. There's nobility in hard work when it's
Yeah.
not for yourself. So I wholeheartedly, resonate with what you're saying, man.
Yeah.
Because shoot, I've had to go take jobs in the past where I'm just like, damn, I'm here,
Yeah.
and it hurt my ego. At that time, I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
totally understand where you're coming from. Now, um, back to that, what you were saying, like, was it the jobs that mentally brought you out of that dark place in your in the shortcoming that you experienced, or what did
Mhm.
you have to tell yourself to kind of like mentally like say, hey, I now have confidence again? Because shortcomings can mess with your self-esteem and your confidence, and I've
Yeah, for
experienced that
sure.
myself.
Yeah, yeah, it can be pretty depressing too because you're not around people of the public anymore. And I love customer service, man. I love, 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 providing great service to people and greeting them and making them feel welcomed and making them have a unique experience, like within that job. Like if you have a RBF,
Yeah.
when somebody walks in, like you're not making that experience. Or even like when so I'm working at Starbucks, and so like when somebody like comes through, and you never know when it's their first time, you never know when it's their first time coming in, because I've had a few people be like, yeah, it's like our first time here at Starbucks. I'm like, wow, like that's crazy. And so if you don't provide that, then it's a bad customer service experience. um but yeah, I would have to say, wait, I'm kind of blanking out a little bit. So you going kind of tying back to your question, it was
Yeah, you're good. I was just asking, in those moments where you're like, hey, I had to get 3 jobs because, but I was in a very dark place. I was doing these things. My business didn't go
yeah,
as expected. What was it that like helped you escape that mindset of,
I think it was
defeat?
routine. And yeah, it was routine and like being busy, dude. Keep it like you have a sense of productivity again, because you're, whether you're ringing out a guest or whether you're making a new sale for your job, there's a lot of sense of productivity instead of you just sitting at home, just like watching TV or playing video games or coming up with all these great ideas. But you're actually doing stuff. You're out with the community, and then you just kind of know it's like kind of temporary, man. It's kind of also like the financial boost of it, kind of you starting to have income again, and you being able to like support yourself and like buy stuff that you want to buy. And so I think that was probably what kind of like got me out. And then kind of once I get back on the surface, yeah, because like I was easily down in like a really, not really like emotionally, not really like psychologically. I would deal with it maybe one day, like of just like, oh, I'm feeling fucking depressed. But for the most part, I'm a super optimistic guy. I'm usually really happy throughout the day. I wasn't ever like going to a dark place like that. It was just more like, fuck, dude, like, like anybody else would be stressed if they were financially struggling. So it was more for that. And so once I kind of like got my shit back up to the surface, then I can really see what I want to do. I have a little bit more flexibility. And so
You
that's
feel
pretty
like
much
you
it.
had more clarity as well?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. More clarity because you have time to kind of build up financially and then when you're ready to make that move, to leave your job, then that's kind of what you got to do. So
There
yeah.
you go. Now I want to bring up a key point that you mentioned earlier about being authentic.
Mhm.
Now, we probably have our own interpretations of what being authentic is, but that's like a core fundamental value of what Luxic View is. I talk a lot about it all the time. Be authentic with who you are, what you're doing. Now, what is your definition of being authentic? What do you embody when you say that?
I would say just like being consistent in what you put out there and what you express, whether it's in person, with coworkers or your friends, your family, or social media. Man, just being consistent. You can't just say one thing and then shit on it a year later. And it's just you got to stay true to those values and don't humility. I think humility is like huge for that. I think they kind of go together and not basically not faking it till you make it. Like I'm not fucking like out at the most fanciest dinners or whatever, um, trying to say for instance for social media, like posting that, that's not even a thing. Even if I like did it was like super rich, I don't even know if that was something I would want to do all the time, maybe to treat
Yeah,
myself once in a while, but or even like posing next to like super nice cars, like Lambos that aren't mine, like stuff like that. I think,
yeah.
the whole faking it till you make it is like just not being authentic. I
Yeah,
think.
I think it plays a big role in like people's ego for sure. And I can honestly say that because 7 years ago that was me, bro. That was how my mind operated.
Yeah.
And I grew up, life hit me several times. So I understand exactly what you're talking about. Just that's a really big thing. Now, my
Just
girlfriend
being
always
down to
says if
earth too, being super down to earth. Yeah.
yeah,
Not
yeah,
not being like, not being one person on like say social media, for instance, and then like in person, you're fucking stuck up. If I know you from like Instagram or something and like we obviously see each other, we like each other, we like each other's stuff. And if I see you in person, I'm probably gonna go say what's up. I mean, unless you're across like the store or something or whatever, then but if you're like right next to me and we make eye contact, I'm probably gonna say what's up, like, hey, like I follow you, whatever. I'm not shy to do that. So I
some
want to
people
get,
are, right?
yeah, no, for sure. A lot. Yeah. I feel like a lot of people are.
Have you ever had
Yeah.
like an awkward encounter with anybody where you're like, I just try to say what's up?
I mean, I don't know if it was awkward. It was just kind of like, yeah, like there's some people who were a little bit more stuck up like in person than they were over social media. They seemed like they had all this personality, but kind of in person, they couldn't really transition that or whatever. And they were a little bit more kind of like, like, I want to see me kind of type of thing.
Yeah.
And so, but no, over the past few years, it's been awesome. I've met so many people. A lot of encounters where like someone would be like, "Hey, like you're Steven the photographer. I follow you on Instagram. Like love your content, whatever." And I'd be like, "Hey, what's up? Like, what's your name?" I shake their hand and make sure I follow them back as well. And I just love meeting people from online in the real world. So yeah.
There you go, man. Well, I love everything that you represent. I'm always engaging, I feel like, with your content. I love the coffee shops. That's one thing my girlfriend loves. What I was gonna say a little while ago, she always says this it's not really a quote, but it's something she says. If you don't know what you stand for, then you're kind of like all over the place and you'll represent and be anything. But when you know what you stand for and you know who you are,
Yeah.
that really says much more than just going with the wind and just agreeing with everybody, if you will.
Yeah.
And
The
I
whole
think
self
that's
awareness thing.
yeah, I think that's very important for those that are out there, that are online. Like, honestly, just find out what you stand for, because there's things that if you stand for them, you're not going to post certain things, you're not going to act a certain way. And I
Yeah.
think that's important. Now, one thing I just wanted to let the audience know, I will link all of your social media, your business page and everything, but for those that don't know, let them know the name of your business, the social media business, in case anybody's interested.
Yeah. Yeah. So that is called Primeside Social, and then my photography page is Primeside Photography. So yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Everything will be in the links once this is published. So I really do appreciate your time. I know you have to get going here shortly, so I don't want to hold you too long. Now, one last thing
Yeah. Go
for
for it.
those that are out there, I asked if you can give any advice to anybody a little while ago, and you definitely gave them some knowledge. I always say success
Yeah.
leaves clues, and you're definitely leaving clues for everybody.
Thanks.
Now, in your journey and in your transition of going from working a job and continuing to persevere through working and owning a business, um, how have you found time to juggle everything that you're doing, because it's not
Yeah,
like you're doing one thing or two. You're
yeah,
doing
that's true.
quite a few things.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, dude, that's like the battle you got to deal with every single time, finding your routine, finding like when you're most productive, learning how to block out distractions. I'm not really the type to, I don't really play video games at all nowadays. Very rarely, maybe once in 2 weeks or something like that. And it's only for like an hour. Don't really binge Netflix. So I kind of have those sacrifices so I can have more time to work on what I want to work on. So yeah, just finding your routine, finding your, when you're most productive. And then knowing when, like, almost like a meter, man, like knowing when you're just like, you're going hard, going hard, going hard, and you're like gassing yourself out, knowing, okay, now it's the time to go, relax, go to the park, do whatever you like. Some people like to go to the gym. Some people like to watch a movie. Some people like to, play video games. Some people like to go to the spa, um, or go out for drinks. I like to go out for drinks too occasionally. I don't go too often, but occasionally it feels great. So I would say that. And then oh my God, staying organized. So I got
Organization.
organization's huge, man. That's one of the biggest things I've got compliments for, was like being organized. If you see like my phone calendar, dude, like it's like color coded. You have like shit going on every day, dude. It's like booked up and it's organized. To make sure I don't miss anything. I have my like calendar in my room. It's like a big paper one.
Oh
Yeah,
wow.
I have like 3 whiteboards here, dude. Let me show you really quick. Hold up.
Yes, yes, yes. Organization. This is
Yes.
awesome.
The like, bro, I got whiteboards on whiteboards on whiteboards, bro. I got this right here. I got I got my to-do list, dude. You got to write down shit.
Wow. For those
And
that
then
don't do that now,
this one,
I
this one,
have to admit,
this one's empty, but I mean, I usually do use it, and so, dude, yeah, I got all these fucking whiteboards.
well, I need to definitely get better at my calendar. That's for sure.
Yeah,
On my
yeah, and that,
calendar.
dude, for sure, you got it, man. Because that's another thing that kind of ties into the advice that I'm giving is so organization, but also like writing down your goals and kind of being like goal like oriented. Because if you just kind of say like, I want a nicer body by the end of 2020, or I want this car by the end of next year, or I want to make this X amount of money, or I want this house. If you just say it and one day, or you think it and you don't really like have a plan of action, you don't have that strategy to execute, then you're just going to keep telling yourself, oh, I'm going to do it next month, or I'm going to do it the month after that. But when you write it down, there's kind of a sense of direction, a sense of clarity, and that's pretty much what that is. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. Thank you for sharing with people literally, how you keep organized. Because for those
Yeah.
that have not had that idea for whiteboards, I mean, shoot, that's hopefully this somebody takes that and implements that. That's for sure. But Stephen,
Dude.
I want to thank you for your time today, man. I'm grateful that you were able to jump on today and go through this interview with me for Luxic Vue Mindset episode number 3. Now, for those of you tuning in, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Um, Always remember, doubt kills. You need to embrace now and live your legacy. I will see you guys next time.
Yes, thank you for having me, man. It was a pleasure.
No problem. Thank you very much, Stephen.